Okay, so this is the answer to questions 1 and 2. Can you wave? How about a big wave way up there? Way up high? There you go. And a high five? Thank you. Can I talk into the camera for a minute? You can hang out here too. You asked how school aids in Frankie's social development. I'm going to answer most recently from Transition Plus because I think I have the best example. One of the things that they do regularly is have an augmentative speech therapy session. I believe it's every Tuesday. And so, what is really cool with people like Frankie who use an iPad to communicate, which Frankie's been working on for years, they play Uno. So, they learn not only the game using their device, but helping them take turns and helping them be part of a process and be part of a game. And I think maybe on a broader scale, Frankie is super social, which is a very good skill. Really confident, which is, if you heard my intro, all the stuff he went through as a child, all the medical things he's gone through, the fact that he's so confident and just out in the world is really, really cool. One of the things they have to do is kind of rein that in sometimes because Frankie loves to give high fives and say hi to people, not in a repetitive, classic autistic way, but just he gets into a rhythm where he really wants to engage with people, and it's a way for him to engage without using his voice. So we have a rule between school, after school, sports activities of one and done. Otherwise, the high fives can really get to be a thing and keep him from doing other things. So that's one really good example of how they aid his social development. But this guy needs no help going out in the world, saying hi to people, being out in the world. So again, it's more reining it in. I believe the second question was, what's the best thing about having Frankie as my son? I'm gonna try not to cry. I think it's just seeing the world from a whole different perspective. It's just slowing down, and I have to teach myself that all the time. Um, I will give you a really concrete example of that. I went on a work trip last 2 weeks ago to San Diego, and I forgot business cards, and it was a work conference where I was going to be networking a lot. So on a Sunday night, we had to go up to my office downtown, grab some business cards, and as we were leaving the building, I was going to start telling Frankie, hey, let's go across the street. There's cars over on the left. We park it across the street. I made myself shut the hell up and just give him a second to look across the street and see where our car is. So it's really just that slowing down and just helping him be himself and be his best self, which honestly is not always easy. Sometimes we're in a hurry, sometimes I'm getting him to do things, but when I can do that, it's pretty amazing. Can you turn my backlight back on, please? Thank you. And I think another thing too is allowing Frankie to be himself. I remember when Frankie was 4 and we were at the playground and I was watching him. Um, Other kids were doing things like typical 4-year-olds do. They were climbing, running, jumping, real life happening back there. Um, and I just was starting to have a pity party like, oh, I wish Frankie could do that stuff. I wish he could be doing all that other stuff. And it's one of my first really solid memories of just saying, hey, let him be himself, let him have his own fun. Don't, if I'm going to spend the rest of his life comparing him to other people, we're always going to be unhappy and we're always going to lose. I'll tell you one more story about what's amazing about Frankie is just seeing those light bulbs go off. I'm a giant history nerd, and I'm really lucky that this one has either learned how to make me happy by pretending to enjoy history, or honestly, I think he really enjoys it. So we took a trip 2 summers ago to New York, and then we took a side trip down to Philadelphia for the weekend. I lived in New York, I'd been to Philadelphia a bunch of times to see the historical sites. So I took him to the historic district, and Frankie really likes books about the writing of the Constitution. I have no idea why, it's just really cool. So we have a book, it's a kid's book, but I mean, it's a lot of sentences, a lot of words. But there's also some really great illustrations about the debates during the writing of the Constitution. And so when we were in Constitution Hall in Philadelphia, I pulled that book out of our backpack and I showed him one of the drawings that he really likes of George Washington sitting in his big chair presiding over things, and James Madison writing notes and Ben Franklin there. And as the tour guide, before the tour started, I just said, dude, like that is that. What is in your book is where we are right now. And I saw this, and that's going to make me cry. It was just really interesting that he really made that connection. And it made me really proud that he was aware enough to put those things together, but that we could share that moment honestly without any words.